Greetings and salutations, fellow questioners. Welcome to Jason McLean Questions Everything, where today we're going to ask, is Netflix's Cleopatra racist? Donnie, Joe, this is your topic. You really wanted to talk about race swapping, and it was the Cleopatra film or documentary.
Yeah, I think what this whole controversy over Cleopatra I've been paying attention to, and it's pretty fascinating to me. But for me, I guess as a little way to introduce this topic, growing up as an Asian American kid in America in the 80s with the pop culture that we all grew up on, I started noticing when they would whitewash Asian roles because, we have a lot of examples, like most famously John Wayne as Genghis Khan.
Right.
We also have that movie 21. I don't know if you know about that one, about those Asian American kids who figured out how to card count, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, most of those kids were Asian Americans, and in the movie, it was like
they're all white.
One Asian kid in the group.
Yeah,
and he was like a bit player. Even recently, like that movie Aloha.
Oh,
yeah, with Bradley Cooper and what was her name, Emma Stone. And then Emma Stone was playing a character who was based off a real person who was half Chinese and half white. And they're like, what? Why are you playing? And again, in all of those instances, the justification for it was, when people complained, was that it was for marketing reasons. Because if you have an Asian main actor's face on occupying the space on a movie poster, people aren't going to go in and watch your movie. So as an Asian kid growing up, I learned to really resent it when people would whitewash Asian characters out of movies and replace them with white actors, because all for the sake of marketability, which tells me, well, okay, I guess my face ain't marketable then, right?
Right.
So in the beginning, I was a little more accepting of the whole notion of when the whole woke revolution happened, and then they started doing things the other way, where they started doing the opposite of whitewashing, which was like replacing, I don't know, just replacing characters and just adding in like a different race character. At first I was okay with it, because I was like, okay, well, at least Asian people are getting more roles. At least we are kind of marketable. But then I started seeing it going overboard to the point where it almost seemed like it was like trying to right a wrong with another wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my initial fascination with this topic. And so you and I, Jason, we've been talking about some very famous examples in pop culture, in movies and comic books, where they have been race swapping characters. And there were a number of controversies that you and I and the people listening at home have been paying attention to. Famously, The Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Peter Pan.
Yeah. Well, Tinkerbell specifically.
Yeah. Actually, Peter Pan himself too.
Yeah, Peter Pan. Yeah, he was swapped also.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did both. I honestly haven't even bothered to pay any attention to it.
I'm not even bothered to. Yeah, no.
Batgirl was also in the movie that they're not going to release. Like, it was apparently so bad they said, "Yeah, we're done." Like, it's been shelved. It had Michael Keaton and Brendan Fraser in the movie. They were big parts of the movie, and they have it filmed, and they shelved the whole thing as a tax write-off. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
The test screen said it was unwatchable. But she, again, Barbara Gordon, was race swapped to be black. Before we get into, because I think there is an interesting conversation about sort of the malicious intent about what's going on now. I kind of want to talk about the beginning, sort of some of the earlier times when it's not been controversial to have a white character, a fictional white character that has been played by a black or Asian actor. Famously, we see this in Smallville with both Kristen Crook playing Lana Lang and Pete Ross, the actor's name I forget, but the gentleman was black, and of course Kristen Crook is half Chinese. Nobody cared. Nobody cared at all. That Lana Lang was because she was hot, and the gentleman playing the fine actor playing Pete Ross, nobody cared about Pete Ross, right? And so nobody at all had any issues whatsoever.
No issues.
Another great example of that is Billy D. Williams playing Harvey Dent in 1989's Batman. He played Harvey Dent. Nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is played by not Michael. I just forgot his name.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. Thank you. It's like that's not who I was thinking of. Yeah, he's played by Samuel L. Jackson. Nobody complained. Now there is a little caveat to that one, which is the Avengers movies that we got, particularly that first phase, is very heavily influenced by the Ultimate Universe comic line, and in it they literally based Nick Fury on Samuel L. Jackson.
They did.
Which is why they actually went with Samuel L. Jackson. They went to him because he's a comic fan. He said, "Heck yeah, I'll do this." But again, for the comic fans knew who Nick Fury was, and they understood why they went that way, but nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
And all these other examples, again, these were sort of out of nowhere, but nobody cared. And I think the main reason was because let's look at Billy D. Williams. It was freaking Lando Calrissian. Nobody cared because it was, hey, here's a great actor who you love playing a role that honestly, unless you were a comic fan, you didn't know who Harvey Dent was. Yep. Same thing. Kristen Krug and Pete Ross. Unless you're a comic fan, you had, maybe you remembered Superman 4 that Lana Lang was in it, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
Everyone, unless you were a comic fan, you had no idea who Lana Lang or Pete Ross was, but they were just good actors doing honest work to the story. And so that's how it was presented, and nobody cared.
And Pete Ross was such a minor character in the comics anyway. So you could have him played by anyone. Like people didn't care because they didn't really care that much about the character to begin with.
Right. It
would have been a different story if they race swapped Clark Kent, though. That's for sure. Yeah, that would have been a very different story.
And I think that part of that, part of it is if it's again, nobody cares that Kang and the High Evolutionary were race swapped at all.
No,
they don't, because these are not characters that that you know and have an emotional attachment to as they are presented, right? It's like the difference between New Coke and Old Coke or Classic Coke. New Coke had the largest, I think it's still to this day one of the largest and most expensive and extensive taste testing of any product ever. It was universally accepted as being a better product than Classic Coke. The problem was they said you can't have Classic Coke anymore. And Coca-Cola had spent decades creating this brand as the American soda, right? It was what got the soldiers through World War II. It was a part of your American childhood. And so to be told, you can't have that anymore, here's the new thing, people can't stick with it, said, no. And it honestly, again, best sampling and test of any product ever, it was universally hated. People said it tasted worse. Why? Because in the head of everyone tasting, they said, I have to drink this instead of what I grew up with. It was psychological. It's the same thing. If you've changed a character that is well established, then people are going to have feelings about it. We talked about this before the show. Jack Reacher. When the movies came out with Tom Cruise, people who knew nothing about Jack Reacher, they didn't care. But the Jack Reacher fans, they hated him for being Jack Reacher. They said, this is not Jack Reacher. Now, the new Amazon show, everyone has said that man is Jack Reacher. That is exactly how he's portrayed in the book. So part of this, I do think, is, what you grew up with, what you've connected with the character versus, a character that you don't know anything about, right? From a fictional perspective. So I think that's definitely a big part of it. But to your point, the thing is, though, this isn't happening every so often. It's now happening in everything.
it is weird because not all race swapping is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Some are a little more, I don't want to say forgivable, but some are like, okay, let me give you my favorite example of a race swapped character that nobody complained about and people actually liked was in the new Batman movie.
Yes.
Right, with Robert Pattinson. They switched Commissioner Gordon, or at the time he was Lieutenant, with Jeffrey Wright.
Yes.
The actor who was in Westworld, right? A black guy. But when I saw Jeffrey Wright being cast as Commissioner Gordon, I was like, honestly, I like that because that he embodies that character, apart from not even regardless of his race, just his persona. He fits the role of Commissioner Gordon so well because he's like that super serious, gruffed out, always stressed out detective. I mean, I feel like Jeffrey Wright was kind of perfect for that role. I would say the perfect Commissioner Gordon would be Bryan Cranston.
Yes, 100%. Well, particularly for Commissioner Gordon, it would be Bryan Cranston, particularly now.
But again, I also like Jeffrey Wright.
But no, to your point, Jeffrey Wright's a great actor, and he did a great job in that movie. But you're right. Nobody cared. Everyone said, "Hey, it's Jeffrey Wright. He's a great actor."
We loved him in Westworld. That guy was awesome, and he was
great.
Essentially playing the same guy.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what he's doing. But to your point, it's because everyone said he's a great actor, so we're cool with it. And I think this is where the malicious aspect of it kind of comes around. Is the problem is the studios aren't saying, "Hey, we have a really great actor to play this character."
Yeah,
it's, "Hey, we found a black actor to play or an Asian actor to play this character." They are marketing themselves as, look at how good we are for changing this character.
Yeah, they're flexing their clout,
Right, and they're saying, "Hey," there's an interesting point here to be made in a second, but it's like if Carlos Esposito, right? Amazing actor, dude. People have talked about him playing Professor X. Here's the thing. I'd be okay with it. I think he's a great actor. He would play the ever-loving crap out of that role. But here's the problem. You've poisoned the well. Is it that you got him because he's an amazing actor? Or did you just want a black Professor X? And that's the problem. You've poisoned the well because what they've said is, we're going to make him black. We're going to move forward. You wanted, instead of just saying we found a really great actor to play this character, you said, look at us, look at how good and wonderful and special we are. And that's your problem. You've made it where, well, the character being white was a problem.
Yeah, it's like trying to show off some weird sense of like fake moral superiority.
Yeah.
It's like, really, that's okay. So let's go into some not so wholesome examples, Jason.
All right. So again, we're going to get to Cleopatra. We really, really are, because that conversation is going to get wild. But the actress who played Cleopatra very famously, very recently, just a few days ago, came out and said, blackwashing isn't a thing. And someone put this up. Now, here's the thing. This isn't necessarily about blackwashing per se. This is about the eradication of gingers. All of these characters, I mean, you could argue Miss Martian and Starfire aren't technically gingers because, Miss Martian is a Martian. She's green, and Starfire is famously orange. However, they both have traditionally red hair. And there are honestly more other characters with red hair that have been race swapped. Again, Kristen Crook is on here, but again, this was put out simply saying, hey, what about all these ginger characters? It's not the characters with black hair that are being swapped out. It's specifically gingers. Now, there's a few examples on here. I think you can argue back and forth, but the overall point is, why is it the ginger characters getting altered? And why is it every single one of them? Now, the Little Mermaid one, because again, like Pete Ross, he's sometimes ginger in the comics. He's sometimes blonde. Like Pete Ross isn't on here. even though he's sometimes portrayed
My favorite picture there is the one of Jamie Foxx. He looks ridiculous.
Jamie Foxx, as Electro. Yeah. Another interesting one that's not on here. It doesn't matter. Like I said, Tinkerbell's a newer one, but she's not ginger. Anyway, this was about the gingers specifically, right? Oh, Ned Leeds. That's the other one, right? But he wasn't swapped with a black character. He was swapped with an Asian character. That's because of the Ultimate Universe. They literally took the Miles Morales Spider-Man and the character named Genki. They just took that relationship and moved it to the MCU. So that's why they randomly pulled Ned Leeds.
You've raised an interesting point that I didn't even realize till now. I don't think I know of any examples of people being Asian swapped.
Again, Kristen Crook is one.
Okay, I guess Kristen Crook
and Ned Leeds, because
he's
also
half Asian. I'm talking about like someone who's like
full
Asian. Yeah,
like little
randomly a full Asian guy just shows up and he's playing this role, and you're like, like Jackie Chan is William Wallace.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's when we'll get to Cleopatra. But yeah, I mean, you could argue Ned Leeds' character in the MCU. But the point is, a lot of people have pointed out, and this is not my theory. I don't necessarily. I think there's an easier explanation for it. That's actually even more racist. But some people have pointed out, hey, they're all gingers, and ginger is phonetically very similar to the word you're not. To the most a word so racist you can't even say it. Is the reason for all the ginger swapping into a black actor is because the Hollywood is having a little racist joke with everyone?
That word's got a lot of magic power, Jason, because it's the only word I know that can summon fists flying in your direction.
It's again, someone said it's a joke, but they're like, which word is the worst one? It's the one you can't actually say.
Yeah.
Right. But so, okay, it's not my theory. I think there's an easier explanation for it. That's actually, I think, even way worse. But people have said, hey, maybe have put out the theory that the reason that gingers are constantly the ones being swapped out is because it's an inside Hollywood producer joke. It is a racist joke on their end. Okay. I'm going to be a little agnostic on it because I think there's an easier explanation, which is redheaded characters tend to be sidekicks and backup characters in comics. The heroes tend to be blonde, black-haired, or brunettes. Right? Those tend to be your main heroes. Why? Well, because the brown hair and the black hair very easily, because again, all the original comic creators were Jewish. That's just they had brown or black hair.
They were, yeah.
And then again, Captain America, he's blonde. Again, you'd have blonde hair, blue-eyed, because that was one of the ideals. Yep. So, and again, because comics is a visual storytelling medium and heavily relies on stereotyping to a point, redheads are your fiery characters. Well, those tend to be the side characters, right? That's the plucky sidekick, like Wally West, who did become the Flash, but only after Barry Allen, who's blonde, was killed. And of course, they brought him back.
Wally West. They race swapped him too.
Yeah, and they race swapped the ginger character.
Yeah.
So I think there's an easier explanation, which is these Hollywood producers are wanting, again, the credit, because this is where the Little Mermaid, I have a little bit of insight in that. They want the credit for, hey, look, I've got a black character or black actor playing this role in this movie, right? Or this television show. Well, instead of changing the character everyone knows and loves, like Superman or Spider-Man, they change Ned Leeds. They change one of the other, like Pete Ross. They change the side character. Well, because the side characters are so often gingers, again, it's easier to tell the difference apart in the hair color, right? Yeah. That's why it's the gingers who get hit the most, because they tend to be second tier characters. However, a lot of people have said maybe it is an inside joke. It's an inside racist joke with Hollywood producers. And let's be honest, as terrible human beings as Hollywood producers tend to be, is it really that far-fetched?
Yeah, and that one I don't know, because there's so much weird ways that they've tried to translate comic books into movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So many weird stuff because a lot of those comics back then, if you look at like the Marvel roster from like the 80s and early 90s,
Hmm.
it was all white dudes, except for like maybe one or two
Yeah, I
like
mean, the
African
vast
American
majority.
people.
Oh yeah,
I didn't
absolutely.
see the only Asian was a girl, like a Psylocke, and she wasn't even. She had the brain of a British woman. You couldn't even give
Yeah.
us one character, Marvel. Come on, man.
Well, there were others, but yeah, I mean, to your point, it tended to be like
Oh, the
again,
Mandarin.
yeah, like the
Oh
Mandarin,
yeah, real good
Shang-Chi.
one there, Marvel. Yeah, way to represent us, the
Yeah,
Mandarin.
yeah, the
Really?
Mandarin.
That's like having another guy, and his name is the Korean.
Yeah,
That's his
exactly.
name, the Mandarin.
Yeah. Well, you had Shang-Chi, but again, it's like for every
Shang-Chi, I don't
one,
have. Oh,
for every one character for every one Asian character you could find in a Marvel or DC comic, you had 100 other white characters, and the black
yeah,
characters, with the exception of like the Falcon and Steel, um, and a few others,
yeah.
were
The
often
Storm.
just bad. Storm, right?
Yeah.
Black Panther, um, uh, they were just as bad. Night Thrasher, Rage, literally a dude. It was a black dude in a luchador mask whose power was anger. Like, really,
Yeah,
really? That's what
so Marvel's not been the best with that. And then you had like Iron Fist, who when Netflix came out with that show, people were complaining. They're like, "Oh, they whitewashed it." And I'm like, "No, they didn't. That's the original
No.
character."
Yeah, Danny
Yeah,
Rand was again. That's part of a different mythos, right? It's the white character who goes off into the mystic Orient, learns, and then comes back to
yeah,
to fix. So it's like people don't even understand that. It's like that's actually elevating Asian characters was the mystic Orient. They go and they learn these wonderful new things, and they're better than all the other white people that they come in contact with now because they have the secrets of the Orient,
yeah.
right?
People try to. Yeah, I felt sorry for that guy who played him. I'm like,
I did a
don't
great
hate on
job.
him.
Yeah,
He's his
the show
his
was
martial
bad.
arts was not
No, it was not.
convincing though. His martial
No.
arts did suck. He
Yeah.
needed to spend more time in the gym though.
Well, the choreography
Yeah,
was terrible as well.
choreography was pretty bad.
Yeah, that show needed to have, yeah, that's a whole other
Yeah.
conversation. But so yeah, I think there's again, the ginger theory, I think there's an easier explanation for it, but I think the thing for me that makes it worse is, and we can see it really absolutely with the Little Mermaid, is they just want credit for doing it. Because when the Little Mermaid when they first announced the character, the actress, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did an article because it was just fresh, and this was before COVID, right? That's how old this movie, how long this movie's been in production. I looked at all the articles because they were citing all of these they were saying these are just the racist backlash. So I went to all the tweets that they posted in every article. And it was the same 3 to 5 posts, right? One was a group that had like 15 people, and all they were saying is, "Hey, this isn't my Ariel. What's wrong with my Ariel?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? Again, just like the same way people were saying, "Well, what's wrong with Jack Reacher being Jack Reacher? Why does he need to be Tom Cruise?" But that's all they were saying. The other 3 or 4 people who were they were clearly bots. One account only ever talked about DC or Disney movies and shows. That's it. And not one of them had more than 3 followers. Not one of those accounts had more than 3 followers. In fact, I think 3 was like the highest one of those other sets. Most only had 1 or 2.
Yeah.
They were all bot accounts, and they were given by Disney to these writers because they wanted the controversy so that Disney could see, look, we're standing up to racists. Nobody cared. Nobody cared that Ariel was black at all. Now, the reason you have controversy now, because again, the movie's coming out. Well, what did they do? They repumped the same old story of look at these races. Again, nobody actually cares. But then what they do is the backlash is against Disney's, we're being so brave for casting this black actress to play Ariel. Isn't it amazing that it's the promotion that they want? And so people are pushing back saying, well, hold on. Why is it important that people find, it's like, why can't you identify with someone of another race? Why is that? Why is it a problem that you can't do it? Because it's to Donnie, because I agree with you that you should be able to see Asian actors in big roles, black actors in big roles. But I don't think anyone even disagrees with that. The difference is when you're being told it's important that we've changed this character because it's wrong that she was white. And that's everyone's response. So the initial backlash is fake. It's entirely fake.
Yeah.
And they use that fake backlash to promote themselves. It's publicity. That's all this is. It's more malicious. It is,
it's not, I wouldn't even say malicious. I'd say sycophantic.
That's another way of saying it.
Yeah. You're just trying to placate the woke crowd who aren't even that many. And
I don't even think they're trying to placate the woke crowd. I think they just figured out they can. It's marketing. It's more malicious than that. It's just marketing.
I don't know. I don't think it's working though, because a lot of these movies seem to be bombing. But
well, it's not anymore. Yeah. But here's the other problem. There's the other side to it. It's also because they're not investing in these characters or stories. That's the other problem here. It's like, look, isn't it wonderful that you now have a black Ariel? Okay, but did you do anything to actually make this a good movie?
I think they're trying to hide from the fact that it's like, hey, didn't you already make this movie? Why are you making it again? Make a new movie.
Yeah, why not make a new
ideas? You know what? We'll race swap all the characters so people won't pay attention to the fact that we just ran out of ideas.
And we're
just recycling all of our material now.
Well, and here's where it gets even worse. Why is it that you only find value in recycled white characters? Why isn't there value in Bass Reeves? Why don't we have 1,000 movies about Bass Reeves? How come
there's no Pocahontas remake, Disney? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Where Pocahontas at?
Yeah. There's 1,000 stories you could tell. You could create a bunch of new characters. It's easy. You can do it. But honestly, it comes back to they don't want to invest the time or money, and it's easy. They just want they just want what they feel is good publicity, and they also, honestly, I think it's because a lot of them are just racist enough that they know if they were to create a new black character, that it would be terrible. That people would look at it as.
Let me give you another example of that.
Okay.
Ghost in the Shell. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Scarlett Johansson came out.
Yeah.
There were so many people who were so pissed off about that, and they're like, they're whitewashing an Asian character again. And you know who got the loudest about that? Asian Americans, because a lot of Asian Americans are very left.
Yes.
Like younger Asian Americans, Gen X,
Gen Z, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them are very left, and some of the people some of the things they were saying online, there was a whole thing within the Asian community of just bagging on Scarlett Johansson's this choice of casting her as the main character in Ghost in the Shell, which was originally a Japanese anime.
Yeah.
You know what the funny thing is though? When that movie premiered actually in Japan, nobody in Japan cared.
Yeah.
Nobody cared in Japan. In fact, people in Japan liked it. They're like, "Oh, I like Scarlett Johansson from the Avengers movies, and she's in one of our beloved animes." Again, and the reason why people in Japan didn't care is because they come from an ethnically homogenous society. Yeah, and if you come from an ethnically homogenous society, racism isn't really a thing if you're all just one race.
Right.
So them race swapping, they were like, they didn't care. They just thought, "Oh, she's cool. I like her."
It's literally what they did with John Wayne.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Yeah. So, well, I think that there's a lot we could say here about the race swapping of fictional characters and the malicious. And I do think it's malicious when it's done for marketing purposes. However, again, what started this entire conversation? Cleopatra, a real historical figure.
Cleopatra's a little different from one of the previous examples we've been talking about.
Yes,
because she was a real person.
This was a real human being, and it's not even people have always defended it's like, well, what about Exodus, right, or the Ten Commandments, or all these other movies? Though, with the exception of the Ten Commandments, again happening in the '60s, right, when no one was necessarily thinking about that. All these other movies are fictional. They weren't trying to be real. But you're presenting a documentary about Cleopatra's life. So I want to give you a second to talk about this because there's one aspect to it that I think we definitely need to address. But I want you to address the historical inaccuracy because you love history. People may not know this.
Well, we both do.
Well, we both
and
do.
one of the things that one thing I'm quite happy that I did, Jason, was
Mhm.
showing you that trailer before we started the show.
Yes.
Because that trailer was shocking when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's
Because
trash.
it was like, okay, so for those of you who haven't seen the trailer, it's basically, I believe it's Jada Pinkett narrating, like
Yes.
documentary style, about Cleopatra and her role in history and on the world stage. And the way they were trying to introduce and set up this character in the trailer was just, it was poppycock. It was baloney. I want to say the word, but I can't because this is a family show, but it was what it was. And I was like, these statements are just abjectly false. Like, okay, remember, so they start off saying like, back when women ruled, right? When women ruled what? The Roman Empire? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are you implying that Egypt was a matriarchal society? I mean, what are you doing, right? Because obviously there's some kind of agenda. There's some kind of weird feminist woke agenda that they're just trying to cram into like a historical drama.
Yeah.
Like you can't be doing that. That's irresponsible. That is like intellectually and culturally irresponsible, right? And it's just gross.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a flat out lie. Cleopatra wasn't okay. So she was kind of she became the queen because she was the sister of the actual pharaoh who she had to marry, and this guy was barely functional. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to off this guy. I'm going to line up with Caesar because he's got a stronger army because we're just a vassal state at this point.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And also they're trying to portray like that time of Egypt, like that was like the pinnacle.
Heyday. Yeah.
And she was the greatest queen. Are you serious? That was not Egypt back then. That was just a tourist destination for Romans.
Yeah.
By that time.
Egypt had collapsed. Yeah. Egypt had collapsed for centuries by that point.
Egypt been gone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was from the line of the Ptolemies. I mean, she was Greek Macedonian.
When Alexander the Great took over that place, that was a wrap for ancient Egypt, okay? You know what I love when people put like Cleopatra in the same sentence as Nefertiti? I'm like, do you know how far apart they were in history? Like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so
we're talking about like 1,000 years.
They're just saying like it bothers me, Jason. This willful ignorance of history sometimes really bothers me. And I was seeing it in this trailer. I saw it in your face when you were reacting to it, right?
Yeah.
When that lady in the trailer just says, I don't care about what they say in the history books. Cleopatra was black. That's what my grandma told me. I'm like, okay. So we're just going to just tell our own facts. We're just going to make up our own facts, Jason.
Yep. Well,
I guess that's what we're doing now.
There is no such thing as truth. 2 + 2 does not equal 4.
Okay.
Anymore. Well, but there's we can come back to, but that it's aside from the fact that again this is supposed to be a documentary that they've lied about everything that they present. Like even I did read one article where they were talking about how they portray her as this big progressive hero for releasing and opening the granaries during a famine. Like everyone did that. That's what everyone did at all times. If there's a famine, they open the grain stores. That's how that works. That's why because every emperor has and every king throughout history has known if we have a famine and people are hungry, I'm on the dinner plate if I don't give them food.
Yeah.
So they are again clearly manipulating everything, but this is where it gets, I think, even more malicious because you could argue, well, maybe the whole casting her as a black actor with a black actress was just again marketing, right? The line where she's again that line where she says, "Well, my grandmother said, don't believe what they tell you in the school." She was black. People don't really know about this because the news media doesn't talk about it. But there is a philosophy out there called Black Afrocentrism, and it is the belief that Africa is exclusive to black people, and that anyone living in Africa or on the continent of Africa that is not black is a foreigner and does not belong there. Jada Pinkett Smith doing this, knowing she is perpetuating Black Afrocentrism.
Mm-hmm.
This is why the Egyptian people have freaked out.
That's why they're pissed off. Because if you think about it, the people who should really be pissed off is Greek people, because Cleopatra was Greek.
Yeah.
And Greek people should be like, what the heck? You know, she was Macedonian.
Yeah, which is again one of the Greek peoples, you know, one of the Hellenites. Mm-hmm. But this is this philosophy is we talked about this also, right? There's a difference in having, again, a white actor play Jesus, right? Yeah. Because again, when most of these were happening, like you said, largely racially homogenous during that period.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between saying we're going to cast a white actor to play Jesus because he's white.
Yeah.
That's very different. Again, all of the historic artwork that everyone points to, well, it comes from like the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Where were the Europeans going to find someone of Middle Eastern descent to stand in and portray Jesus? They were just using models that they had. The same way the Coptic Christians depict him as black, the same way, again, from the Middle Ages, we've got Chinese ink paintings where everyone's Chinese.
Mm-hmm. With regard to people are like, well, maybe she had like mother or like people married into her family, and I'm like, do you know how much incest inbreeding was going on because they were trying to keep the bloodline pure?
That's why her brother was non-functional.
Yeah. And this is Macedonians were northern Greece, so they were more. That's a more temperate. You know, they're not like southern Mediterranean people. They're like up in the, in the Balkan states, like where the Romanians would be. They're pretty pale people.
Yeah, I mean, they're not my white, but they're not. But they ain't Jim Caviezel.
Yeah.
Right.
But just so it's like just because that story happens to take place in Africa, now we got to make it black.
Again, because it's a racist philosophy.
Yeah.
Just like if you were to say no, Jesus has to be white. Okay, well that's racist. He was a Hebrew from the Middle East of that time. He would have, and we're going to do an episode on what did Jesus probably actually look like. We're going to do that.
I do have to add though, real quick. That's not to say that there weren't black people in ancient. I don't even want to say ancient Egypt, but in the Roman Egypt at the time, because actually that part of Egypt at that particular point in time was pretty diverse because you had all these people coming in and out, all these different traders and people there to study. So you did have Asian people there. You would see a few like black people walking around. They even had like a regiment of like black soldiers. From like a different tribe who were working for the Egyptians as like elite soldiers. So there were black people, there were white people, there were all sorts of people, Middle Eastern people, Asians, all walking around Egypt back then. So I'm not saying that there weren't black people in Egypt, because there were, but
but that's not, again, but the Egyptian people are an actual people group. This is their actual history, and you're saying, and you are saying they don't actually have history with this. It's not your history, because that is the claim of Black Afrocentrism, is that the history you claim as Egyptians is wrong because you're not black. It's more malicious than that.
It's just so abjectly wrong. Like the first time I heard about it, I just kind of I audibly was like, what? She was Greek.
Yeah.
She was so Greek. In fact, Cleopatra is like one of the Greekiest names.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. I'm serious. It's okay. So if you ever try to study the history of Alexander the Great, a part of it becomes unreadable because, there's the part where he's conquering Egypt and Persia and making his way over to India, all the cool military stuff. But then after he dies, basically what happens with his family is it goes full on Soprano style.
It does.
Like a mafia family where they're just like assassinating each other, forming alliances, and then backstabbing each other, and then secretly hooking up with this guy's wife. And there's all this stuff going on, and it's real. There's all this intrigue. The problem was like every female character or every female figure in the history of Alexander, like half of them were named Cleopatra. It was like what they named. It was like kind of like in the 1800s where like most of the women were named Mary.
Right.
Every woman in that story was named Cleopatra. Like he had like a sister named Cleopatra. He had a cousin named Cleopatra. He had an aunt named Cleopatra.
Yes.
So in the story of Alexander, when they say Cleopatra did this, are you talking about the aunt or the neighbor or who?
Yeah.
Because every woman's name was Cleopatra. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Cleopatra, by the way, means love of the fatherland. So, like every other woman was named Cleopatra. It was like the Greek. She was so Greek. I'm like, what are you talking about? She was so Greek.
Yeah. I think it's all part of a much larger conversation that we should definitely have on another show, because it's not just, it's willful ignorance in a way. And yes, the Black Afrocentrism, again, that's racism, and that's definitely a part of it. But I think even that is born out of this other broader willful desire to manipulate history to be what we want it to be, to create good guys and bad guys for power today. That's all this is about. It's about rewriting history. We're literally living 1984. You know, that line, I'll butcher the line. This is all the statues have been changed. All the paintings have been repainted. All of the books have been rewritten. That's the age that we're in. That's what this is about. It's about creating this alternative history so that these people can do what they want to do.
I guess, and it's like kind of insulting to our intelligence, because they're like, oh, people are so stupid, they won't even bother looking up.
I know.
You know?
Well,
you know, the other thing about the trailer that I thought was kind of hilarious and sad at the same time, when they were showing, like, when they're talking about how, like, and she was a warrior, and they show her practicing with the sword.
Oh, yes.
Like, they never even been in a fight like that before. What are you talking about?
She wasn't trained in anything.
They made her out to look like some kind of ninja or something.
It's like she's Xena, the warrior princess. Like,
I'm like, what?
No, she wasn't. Yeah, no, that's not how that worked.
No, she had dudes fighting for her.
Yeah, I love that they're trying to portray her as this caring, concern. Like, she's really cared about Egypt. She didn't care about Egypt. She cared about her own butt. That's all she cared about.
Yeah,
she didn't give two.
That wasn't even her
people. No, she didn't see them as her people.
Because she was Greek.
Yeah, she was Greek. She was Macedonian. She didn't see the Egyptians as her people. Again, just open a book. That's all you got to do. It's not hard.
It's so ridiculous. This whole Cleopatra thing is so... How could they not know that even a midwit would understand that Cleopatra was Greek?
It's not they don't understand. Is that they are... Again, this goes back to they are trying to... This is propaganda.
Yeah.
They are rewriting. This is an active rewriting of history. That's all this is about. It's not about that they did or did not know. They do know. They know what they're doing. They're trying to rewrite history to suit their ends and their goals. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But you know who's not going to manipulate history for our goals? These guys. Yeah, you're over there. Yeah, because history's a thing.
Yeah.
History's a thing. We want... Why am I over here questioning everything? Because we want to know the truth. Truth is how we move forward with our lives. That's how we make better societies.
Real quick question, Jason.
Sure.
Who would you cast as Cleopatra?
Okay, so this is a bit of a cop-out. My first instinct would be Gal Gadot, but that's only because I really, really love Gal Gadot. However, honestly, the actress from Moon Knight. I think she'd work. Because again, I don't necessarily think she was. To your point, right? She's Macedonian. Yeah, but I mean, things got in there. She was probably a little bit dark. She was definitely probably a bit darker than say I am. But yeah, I think you could go with someone more in that skin tone range. But honestly, Gal Gadot is my default on that, but that's because I love Gal Gadot. I freely admit my bias.
Beautiful woman.
Yep. There was a GIF of her in her when like she was just filming the first Wonder Woman film, and she's just like dancing in a circle, and she just seems so happy. Like that little GIF made me happy just to watch. It's just because she's just happily doing a little spin, like that's it, and she's just she's a lovely person And so I would cast her. But like I said, alternative to that would be, I forget, I don't remember the name. You know how bad I am with names. But the actress from Moon Knight, who's sort of the lead love interest and side hero, I think she'd actually do a pretty good job as Cleopatra.
You know who I would cast as Cleopatra just on the look? I'm not talking about acting ability or anything. Right. Just on the look. Mm-hmm. Kim Kardashian.
You know what? As much as I absolutely want to hate that with every fiber of my being, you're probably right.
Yeah. She reminds me of, like, if reincarnation is real,
yeah,
she's probably the reincarnation of Cleopatra.
And considering her side activities, she probably could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm not into I don't believe in reincarnation.
But the thing is, I like comparing. Well, I mean, I'm Buddhist, so I do. But I like comparing historical figures with like modern people. Like, who is our version of like this Roman figure, right?
Right.
Like, who is our version of Nero? And everyone's always got their own little answer. But I do feel like our version
of Cleopatra
is definitely Kim Kardashian.
I don't disagree. Like I said, I want to hate it, but I think you're 100% right. I mean,
if reincarnation were real, she would be a good candidate, I'd say.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
On that note, guys, like, follow, and subscribe. Share us out. You need to inflict this insanity upon all your friends and loved ones.
Yeah.
But we will
get this out there.
Get it out there again. Obviously, like, follow, subscribe, share, do what you got to do. And we'll see y'all next time.